Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. International News Review.
Felix Tan with us, a lecturer at NTU School of Social Science. You've been all over the media lately, Felix, mostly because of the elections, but certainly other reasons as well. It's great to have you back on Saturday mornings.
Thank you very much. Very good morning to you all, too.
Yeah. Let's start off with Ukraine and Russia. They had peace talks, first official meeting, direct talks since 2022. What do we know? Does it look like there's going to be anything that really comes out of them? Of course, Putin and Zelensky were not involved in these. These were other folks in those talks.
I think the news just came in early this morning. I think one of the results of this so-called talks in Turkey is that they had a prisoner swap of about 1,000 prisoners, I think either on the Russian side or the Ukrainian side, but there was exchange of prisoners. So I think that's a good start, and I think a lot of them were talking about that. That's a good first start in any form of peace talks or any form of negotiations.
Show of goodwill.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, where you talk about, perhaps, get back the territory in Ukraine that Russia has taken, I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. Also, I think one of the issue of the Ukraine-Russian peace talk at this point in time is that I think a lot of the Ukrainian allies, especially in European Union, are against any form of giving up of any of its agenda to the Russians as well. So I think there are those pull and push factors for Ukraine and Russia to consider.
There's also a fundamental difference, isn't there, between the two leaders. Zelensky has reiterated his number one priority is a full and unconditional ceasefire. Putin won't go there. He doesn't want a ceasefire because he believes in that period of ceasefire, they'll use it to retrain, rearm in Ukraine. So one wants an unconditional ceasefire, one doesn't. We're still where we were, yes?
Yeah,
no?
in a way we are still stuck 3 years. 3 years on into the conflict and it's still there. All right. But I think if you look at both Zelensky and also Putin, both of them are nationalists, but different, with different agenda. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, Russia is very fearful that, what would happen if Ukraine were to join NATO, for example. Sure. That will be encroaching into any form of agreement that they did after the end of the Cold War. So I think that was the whole agenda that drove the Russian so-called invasion into Ukraine. And you've rightly put it across, when they talk about ceasefire, what are the final details that we're talking about? What are both sides willing to give up? I think at this point in time, the issue here is that they are not agreeable to that, to either side giving up anything.
Absolutely.
Felix, look, we can't decide this among the three of us here, but this argument that Russia was afraid of Ukraine joining NATO and so they, et cetera, we know that. But there's this other side, this other argument that Putin just wants to reconstitute the Russian Empire, pre World War II,
Mother Russia,
and is just kind of conveniently using that NATO thing as a reason, right? How do you weigh in on that?
I think more than just Mother Russia, like the imperial form of it, I think it's more of the Cold War era kind of form, which is the Soviet Union,
right? And the satellite states,
and the satellite states, exactly. So they were all part of the satellite states, and that was something that a happy arrangement for Russia, because they do have to understand that these areas, these satellite states, are also quite different in terms of its values, in terms of its belief systems as well. So I think, and also history. I think that's important. Yes, they used to be part of this big, larger, imperial Russia, but, since the Cold War has, gone into satellite states. So I think that's what Putin is probably looking at, right? All then coming back to this Soviet Union.
So is NATO just a convenient excuse?
It's been around. It's been around. It's a convenient excuse for now.
Yeah. It's a fascinating point you raise there, Felix, because people often lump Putin's nationalism in the same camp as, say, Hindu nationalism in India or what's going on in Gaza and Palestine and Israel. But it's very, very different because Putin's nationalism is not on ethnic lines or on religious lines like in other part of the world. He doesn't really care if you're from Ukraine or Crimea or Chechnya, or he doesn't care about your religion. He genuinely believes that you should all come under the umbrella of this imperial Russia. And his mindset hasn't changed on this at all.
He hasn't changed on that. I think he's looking at more of the territorial nationalism rather than
Yes.
religious or racial kind of nationalism. So in terms of ethnic, it's probably not there because Russia is so mixed as well. So I think it's more of the territorial aspect of what he believes Russia or Mother Russia of the former Soviet Union or in any form of it is to be. Yeah.
Where do we expect, or where is the media saying these talks are going to go?
At this point in time, probably this is as good as it gets, 1,000 prisoner swap, at this point in time. But of course it will continue.
Of course, President Trump has said all he needs to do is get on the phone with Putin and it'll all be solved.
He must have a bat phone because apparently he stopped a nuclear war last week. He saved millions of
India and
lives
Pakistan.
between India and Pakistan. He's unbelievable. That phone, it must be a gold-plated. Dear.
Interesting. All right, let's come back to home here, back to Singapore shores. The Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance Lawrence Wong accepted the president's invitation to form the next government on the 13th of May. DPM Wong also informed the president of the new cabinet lineup. So what is that?
I think, the elections are over.
Yep.
Right. And of course, right now, the next step is for them to form the cabinet. And of course, I think the bigger question here is whether the cabinet will have a huge, major reshuffle. I think we can look at a few things. It will be, for sure, because we are missing one deputy prime minister. We are missing a defense minister. And will PM Wong give up his position as finance minister as well? I mean, he is double hatting. Another person who is double hatting is Shanmugam, who is a Home Affairs Minister and Law Minister as well. So I think if you look at the whole entire cabinet right now, it's probably you're going to have huge, shifts in terms of who is going to be a minister. That's one. I think the next thing is that we do know that, PM Wong has gotten a very, very strong mandate.
Right.
If he wants to institute any changes, he can, because he has been given that sort of legitimacy, by the voters and, of course, his party members as well. So I think that is something they will see in I think about a week and a half time.
I mean, sorry, just one correction. Of course, I said Deputy Prime Minister. It's Prime Minister Wong, not Deputy Prime Minister. A year ago, it was Deputy Prime Minister. But
I think we know.
I just wanted to make sure that was clarified so we don't get phone calls.
Speaking of Deputy Prime Ministers, Mr. Gan Kim Yong expected to be promoted to Deputy Prime Minister, which will make him the acting Prime Minister in Wong's absence if he's overseas. Now, he's got a reputation as a doer, a fixer. That word came up a lot on the campaign trail. Would that be a fair description? A popular character?
Well, he is a task force man, quote unquote, that what PM Wong called him. I think, I think a few things we look at it, right? DPM Gan Kim Yong was part of the COVID pandemic task force together with Lawrence Wong as well. So I think they worked well together. And that actually, it's like working in a team, right? And then, you got this group of people that you can work so well together. You can trust them with decision making. And this is exactly what we are seeing at this point in time. So, well, in a way, it is right. It has achieved results. I mean, we have all lived through COVID. We have seen how much the task force has done for us. I think we are better off now than then. So I think, given the kind of situation, he is the task force man. And I think it's rightly put there.
There is speculation that the cabinet will be reshuffled and firmed up before the Shangri-La dialogue that's happening the end of May and the beginning of June. Is that what you would expect, that they're going to have a firm team in place before all these world leaders come in and discuss security and everything?
Most definitely. I think not just because of the Shangri-La dialogue. I mean, we cannot leave a parliament hanging at this point in time without not knowing who are the full ministers at this juncture. Right now, we have only acting ministers in a way because they have all, elections that ended. They're just in the portfolio for the time being. But will we see a reshuffle?
What about the 4G ministers? A year ago, then DPM Wong had talked about promoting the 4G ministers and rotating them upward. What are your expectations for that?
Well, given a strong mandate, I would likely see that they will be rotated around as well, the 4G, as well as some of the new faces that we saw during the elections.
Oh, really? Already?
So I think they might have a few, a couple of them, maybe one or two. That's very small, but again, it's a good effort. It's shifting, new leadership, a new start, a new beginning. I mean, whoever takes over as full ministers or whoever takes over the portfolio, they have another next 5 years to prove themselves. And, it's either you can see it very long or very, very short because as a minister, there's a lot more work than what it seems to be. So I think, we have to look at that when making the cabinet reshuffle. So it's not just the Shangri-La dialogue itself, but you need to put people in place, and the urgency is there.
Yeah.
What about some of the elder faces? Couple of key retirements, we saw that, but one of their peers, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, former Prime Minister, very much still around. Very interesting how he was used, I would say, in the final days of the campaign, brought out to a few of the rallies, very popular still on the ground. How do you foresee his role moving forward?
I think he'll continue as our senior minister. I think that's already set in stone at this point in time. So I think he has a lot more to contribute. He has the experience. He was a former prime minister. Definitely can guide the younger crop of new faces or even the 4G leaders as well. I think he, in a way, it's kind of, it gives that sort of consistency to the current government and the leadership of Lawrence Wong as well. So it will help in that sense.
Yeah. Now that we're, a lot of days past the election and the result, obviously resounding victory for the PAP, what other takeaways are you getting? You've been looking at some of the overseas votes that have come in since then, et cetera. Is anything refocusing for you now that we're, more than a couple weeks after?
All right. I think when we talk about overseas voters, usually it has little effect or any much of a significance to the election results.
Just in terms of the numbers.
In terms of the numbers, because they are very small. I mean, comparatively very, very small. But what's interesting about the overseas voters is that a lot of all those from each of the constituency, there was a breakdown of it. And if you look at it, the kind of voting pattern was almost the same as what we had in Singapore.
Fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing was like, oh, wow. There was
Would you have expected a different result for overseas Singaporeans?
Sometimes they might want to challenge the status quo,
exactly.
more so that they are living overseas. There's this idea that they will challenge the status quo, they'll vote against the PAP.
Or maybe they have a different experience living outside of Singapore.
Yeah, because there's this stereotype, slightly more cosmopolitan, more worldly, more travelled. Just to use an interesting analogy, Brexit, a lot of folks couldn't vote overseas, including myself, as an overseas voter in Brexit. And there is an argument that had all of the British overseas voters been eligible, the Brexit result might have gone the other way. But in this instance, very similar.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was a rather surprising result. I mean, with a few constituency, there was some of them 50-50. Sembawang West actually tilted in favor of the SDP more than the PAP. So again, that was a little bit of a surprise, but the numbers are so small.
Yeah.
And, even though this sort of shifts, didn't really have much of an impact on the results. And I think, if you look at it on a whole, it's the mandate is given to the PAP and to PM Lawrence Wong.
What do you think? And let's just close off this conversation on the election stuff. But maybe a key takeaway for the PAP from this election, from the campaigning season and the election, not the election, they know the result, but from the campaigning season, and a key takeaway from maybe opposition parties, Workers' Party, et cetera. What did they learn about themselves, their agendas, their presentations? I
think one of the things that the PAP might have learned, should have learned, or could have learned from this is the strategy itself. I think they're very much focused this time around on the policies and also on the causes, the issues that they want to fight for, and especially domestic issues. I think there was a huge focus on domestic. I mean, once in a while you have the Trump, tariffs coming through, but I think by and large Singaporeans care more about the GST hikes, housing, transportation, education, and that was the focus. So I think that was something that the PAP learned. Very focused on policy, not on individuals, not on characters, but
meat and potatoes, right? Bread
exactly,
and butter.
The bread and butter issues, right? I think for the oppositions, I think again they are not monolithic, and I think we have to understand there's a range of opposition parties here. But let's just focus on the Workers' Party. I think it's about time that they reassess, but they do know where they are heading towards. So they are probably in a safe area as the main opposition. But the others, they probably need to reassess what more can they contribute to the Singapore political landscape.
Yeah.
I have one question, a broader question on the media itself, the social media. When are we going to learn? I said this to you off air. The silent voter prevailed again. It's not always the loudest voter. If you'd have believed everything you read on social media in the lead up to the election, you foresaw a massive swing the other way, and yet it didn't happen. I saw a lot of pollsters who make a lot of money putting polls together who were way off in their predictions. What did you make of that?
I think social media is like a little mini drama. You know, it has that dramatic effect. You know, everybody will have something to say. They can be extreme. They can have, you know, different agenda. They'll push the buttons because it's a free in a social media, right? It's free and everything. So I think that is the agenda. But then, you know, there will be people that watching social media will get a little bit turned off, you know, from this push. It's just too aggressive, too in our faces. And it has a reverse psychological effect on us, on some of the voters, you know, and they would think that, why am I listening to this?
Yeah.
You know, maybe I wouldn't vote for the PAP.
Great point.
Let's shift over to the Philippines for our last story. Rodrigo Duterte is currently in detention in the International Criminal Court in The Hague. He won his mayoral election this week in the Philippines by a landslide in his home city. What does this say about, are we still in the populist era of politicians where somebody who's in jail in another country can still be elected as mayor?
We have to understand.
Or is this just a Philippine story?
It's just a Philippine story. I think we have to understand that it's just a Philippine kind of situation. And Philippines politics have always been run on, personality, family, dynasties. And if you look at the Duterte dynasty as well, you got the daughter, Sara Duterte, is the vice president. You have two of his sons, the youngest and the eldest son, who are vice mayors, in I think in Mindanao, if I'm not wrong. All right. So again, you have a family-run business. That's just family-run. Then you have the associates as well, the relatives of this Duterte clan. And this is just the Duterte clan. But we also have the Marcos clan. We also have the Arroyo clan. We have everyone has a clan. And of course, that's how politics in the Philippines are run. So it's not about whether Duterte is in the ICC, criminal court. It doesn't matter. He has his linkages and, the patronage, system in the Philippines as well.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us are lawyers, but how does this even work practically, legally? Just for context, as you say, he's on trial in The Hague over his bloody war on drugs. It killed thousands of people, as we recall.
Extrajudicially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's on charges of murder as a crime against humanity. How does this even work legally? How could he even serve as a mayor?
Well, he's not convicted yet.
True.
So I think, as far as it goes, he's not a convicted felon, but we know convicted felons also can be elected as president.
That's very true. Touche.
Not necessarily a bar that has not been passed already for some. Yes, you're right.
Maybe he'll get a $400 million jet as a prize. We don't know.
Felix, always great to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for being with us. Felix Tan, the lecturer at NTU's School of Social Sciences. Will you come back again sometime?
Of course.
All right. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.